This is getting really crazy. This is getting really crazy. Got my herb coffee here. I'm ready to go. I think this is going to be a bit of a longer live stream so we can go through all the questions that you have. But first we'll do a complete breakdown as to what is happening with the sun, because it's in like a solar meltdown or melt up, perhaps. That's what you want to call it, because sunspots are exploding right now. We just had 2 X-class flares back-to-back launch solar storms our way. And with this recent big push of solar flux coming out of the sun, I think we're going to see some really, really, really big solar storms in just the next few days. Not these first 2. We have one that just hit. We'll look at that. The solar wind's already at 20 nanotesla, so this could very well be a G3 storm if the magnetic field flips southward. This is what I forecasted. Everyone else is saying not even a G1 storm, barely a glancing blow. Well, they revised the models, and so now we see this geomagnetic storm coming in stronger than most people expected. If you watch the channel, then you would be aware that this was likely going to be a G2, G3, just based on my experience, intuition, and more. I'm not always right, but I'm pretty good with this stuff. Now we have a second solar storm coming in. We'll look at that X-class flare. We'll look at that chronograph imagery. And really, most importantly, we're going to look and just feel into what the sun is doing right now, because this is like a whole new thing. We'll also do a question and answer. And then I think we're going to do a bit of a sound healing, chakra alignment and everything. I just bought some brand new crystal bowls. And so I think that'd be good for everyone. But just in general, right now, I would say for the next 2 weeks, expect extremely erratic energy, not only from the sun, but everywhere and with people, because when all that solar energy comes in, it supercharges people. Their metabolism increases. And so it's similar to the lunar effect, where you get like, you know, kind of crazy things happening around the full moon. But this is a much more powerful effect. This is a long duration, the waveform that we're talking about, right? This is a 12-year cycle. And this is the last solar maximum that we had that was strong going back to about 20 years, to the early 2000s. So this isn't like, every 28 days. This is like a 20-year thing. And we also have significant planetary oppositions occurring all at the same time. November 3rd, Venus opposite Jupiter, and then also Mars opposite Pluto. So that's why, if you look at all these things, you can see that they're all pointing in the same direction. Crazy, crazy, crazy stuff is happening already. And I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I could very well expect, and I very well expect these things to just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and that we're going through a big push right now. Eventually, we'll come through the other side, but that is just the forecast. Just right out of the gate, that's the forecast. Yeah, the sun is out of control. We are in solar maximum. So this is our sun right here. We have our 304 and our 193 angstrom view. See all this activity there? You can actually, let me step off this side. This is now rotating out, nothing really happening there, but look at just how crazy this is. Popping, crackling, it's like a good campfire, but instead it's our sun and the earth is like this big, right? But look at all this activity here. This is all rotating into the Earth direct zone. So we had sunspot group 3869 launch a 3.3 X-class flare. We'll look at that. And then as it continued to rotate, 3872 also launched an X-class flare from the same location, the same grid location on the sun. So both of these are, they are not direct impacts, but if we look at the chronograph, we see that they are pretty strong solar storms. So let us go into, yeah, there we go. Okay, so just really quickly, I'm going to get back to this, but I just really quickly want to show you how we are now entering into that geomagnetic storm that was forecasted. Because that's what's happening right now. This new solar flare that occurred, that's going to take a couple days to reach us. But here we have our interplanetary magnetic field. We see that we already had this first shock back here. Actually, it's off this. This is a 6 hour time. Let me go to the 1 day so you can see it. There's two shocks. first one is right around here, right there. And we strengthen all the way to about double, 7 nanotesla, all the way up to about 14 or so. And then we get this really, like this is really where the coronal mass ejection impact really comes in. Look at that, 22 nanotesla, and actually staying at that strength. Now this red number there, that red line is the southward component of the interplanetary magnetic field. It needs to go really negative for us to have a good connection. But what we often see with these coronal mass ejection impacts is that they start off kind of jumbled in their magnetic field, and then eventually after a couple hours or more, they switch into that sharply negative component direction. And so they take on that characteristic. And so we are just now at the beginning of this geomagnetic storm impact, but 22 nanotesla, if that does switch sharply to negative, that's a G3 storm. So yeah, G1, or people were saying G0, not even going to hit us. Like, let's look at the solar wind model by NOAA really quick, just to get this out of the way, because this is the solar wind model that NOAA came out with. And I mean, look at this. This is really pathetic, in my opinion. They don't even really show it hitting the Earth. They show all of it going this direction. They show just this faint little whisper sweeping by the Earth, the green dot right there, where it's like, that was a big halo coronal mass ejection. We'll see it. I'm going to show that in just a second. But the reason I'm showing this now is because this new X-class flare that launched from the sun, that coronal mass ejection launched from the same grid location, the same spot. So even though the sun continued to rotate, it went to a sunspot group further back in the line. So this model here is quite a bit off, because this is more than a glancing blow that we are in right now. And NOAA forecasters are already saying, oh, we just have another glancing blow. We don't even think it may hit. This is their first model. First model has already been proven wrong, because we have solar wind strength at 22 nanotesla. And so, yeah, I mean, we didn't get hit with the meat of it, thank God. But this is just consistently, like, this model here was not right. The UK Met Office actually came out with a model as well. And they had to run it twice. The first model was similar to that NOAA model. It actually showed it completely missing the Earth. And then they decided to rerun it late last night, showing a much more significant impact. This is for the geomagnetic storm that's happening right now, for the first coronal mass ejection launched from that 3.3 X-class flare. So they had to reevaluate their model. This one looks more accurate now. I don't know why they were being so inaccurate with these things. It's almost like they don't look at the imagery. So let's look at that imagery. Here is our chronograph. If I can get this pulled up. There we go. And let us go back in time so I can start this fresh for you all. Welcome everyone to the live stream. Hope you're all doing well. I do see that some of you are tagging questions and everything. And so that's just, if you're going to ask a question, the Q&A later, I'll announce it. That's a good time to ask it. I mean, sometimes I read them, but generally it's pretty active. So here we have our chronograph, which will show us our 3.3 and our 1.8 X-class solar flares. And so if I hit start, we'll see this first one right out of the gate. Oh. Okay, if I hit, it triggered something else. If I hit start right out of the gate, we see our 3.3 X-class flare and that coronal mass ejection. That's a lopsided full halo, but still a full halo. When you have that shock wave go out in all directions, you know it's going to hit the Earth. Now we wait a bit and we get our 1.8 X-class flare. Longer duration than the last one too. That is more significant than the first one. Look at this first one again. We see this come in. It's kind of weak on this side, but we know there's something hit our way. Most of it's going that direction. We know most of it's not going to hit the Earth, but still a strong solar storm to pump out like that. And now we get the second one, much more significant, more Earth directed. Even though it's from that same location, the dynamics must have been such that it kind of redirected towards the Earth a little bit more. And so we have already a 1-2 punch coming in. We had the first punch hitting right now. We have the second one coming in around the 28th. And the solar flux right now is insane. If you look at sunspots, it just absolutely bonkers. But first, let's look at these flares because that is really a key component of all this. So if I go here, oh, it popped up a few times. Here we go. Now this will show us both of our flares. And so here is our first one, our 3.3 X-class flare. See the location of that? That's 3869 just now rotating in. Then we have a bit of quiet there before we get our next 1.8 X-class flare from 3872. But really, this is all just one big cluster of sunspots. So you can start to put different labels on them, but really we're just talking about what I've been calling Big Daddy. This is Big Daddy. And the thing with Big Daddy is that he has put out a whole bunch of solar flux up here too, and new solar flux there really rapidly in just the past 24 hours. A whole bunch of new sunspots have formed. And so it's really like this big push of solar energy coming out. These first two flares are just from the inherent dynamics of this sunspot cluster. Now we have all this new solar energy being pushed out of the sun. We see that with our intensity gram. We'll look at that next. And that is indicative of there being a really big, big solar flare coming, or a sequence of them. Again, these were from that pretty far eastern limb. They're going to be rotating here soon. So once the sunspot cluster is really in this zone, I think that's when we're going to see this really big push, either a whole bunch of flares, or we could get something that is really high up there in the X-class rating. I mean, it's possible to get super flare. Let's look at the intensity gram so you can see what I'm talking about, because it's just really insane. And I just need to pull that up. So here we go. And we also see our sunspots. So I want to start with the sunspots first, actually. Here is where we had our October peak. This is pretty close to all-time high for sunspots for solar cycle 25. If you get over 200, you have a strong solar cycle. The average sunspot number for a solar cycle for the maximum is about 175. So we had really high sunspots in August. We set that count for the entire month of August at 214 or so. Then October had this return to this pretty high value, but then it dipped down. But as I was saying, very likely to continue back up, and look at how fast it came up this time. Okay, so there's our sunspot count. Now let's look at our intensity gram here, going from the 23rd to the 26th. Here's the sunspot cluster, but look at all these sunspots that open up here. Right there, see that? See those two? Boom, boom, really quickly. And so we already have a tremendous amount of solar flux here with this big sunspot cluster rotating through, Big Daddy. But now we have flux also popping up just above it and also pretty far up in the northern hemisphere. So this sunspot group that's pumping up right there is going to make that whole region more dynamic and unstable because all these magnetic fields interact together. This one's quite a bit further up. And so, I mean, it could do its own flaring and everything, but it's not really probably going to be interacting with this sunspot cluster there. Though clearly they are related because that solar flux is pushing at the same time. But if this really continues to grow and develop there, then this could destabilize that whole cluster. And we know it has a tremendous amount of energy because of how close all these cores are together. They are all locked really close together. And we've been getting those X-class flares from them. So, and they've been long duration too. That's the thing. It's not like it's just been this really quick peak. It's been this long duration flare. And so we'll come back to this, but I want to show you that X-ray flux specifically because this is important. Here we have, and I think I can zoom in one more time. Yeah, okay. And also get a sip of coffee. This is the herb coffee, by the way, which is half coffee, then it's chicory root, dandelion root, and chaga mushroom. So during these sort of heightened energies, if you still would like to enjoy your coffee, but not get too burned out, not too much cortisol, then you can drink herb coffee. I have it on my website, wildfreeorganic.com/store. Go check it out. I know you will love it. All organic, I mix it myself. So here we have our X-ray flux for the past 7 days, and we see how things were quiet. And then we got this first flare right as that sunspot cluster rotated in. This is at 3.3, so you see that it is a higher X-class rating than this one, but look at the duration, it is slightly less. That's still a pretty good long duration flare, right? A pretty shallow slope, but this one, look at the peak there, and then also flaring on top of that too. So if we punch in on our 1 day, check this out. This is right when I was going to sleep here, when I was making my YouTube post. If you saw that, it was a 9.5 M-class flare, and it started to go down, and then it strengthened up into a 1.8 X-class flare. And so you see that, it's not like it's never happened before, but that goes to show you that there is some like staying power with this sunspot. You know, it's not just, sometimes you get these flares that go straight up, straight down. It's a temporary little release and that's it. But this right there is clearly showing that there is just a tremendous amount of power here being released. And then you get this like pumping up there too. So there's just momentum. Consider the momentum right now, right? I mean, we just see across reality, right? We have these waves in, waves out. And right now there's just a tremendous amount of momentum behind what the sun is doing, this solar flip. And so that is really, really, really quite significant because this, yeah, we'll look at this next, because this is going to, I think, lead into a very big solar storm sequence, either from a single flare that's really big or something that's smaller. I mean, the question that Paul is asking is, when do you think a Carrington event will occur? I mean, this sunspot group could very well trigger a Carrington event, that sort of super strong solar storm. It's possible. There's no reason why it couldn't. Looking at the characteristics of the sunspot group, it has everything needed. Now, whether that will occur, that's a different story. But we see the oppositions occurring between Jupiter and Venus. We see it occurring between Pluto and Mars on November 3rd. And so we just know that in our background planetary resonances, in our archetypal energy information field, that there is just a lot of tense aspects building. Right now, it's only the 26th of October, it's not even the 3rd. So we're still like a week out from that. We already have 2 of these big X-class flares, right? So this just, once you study that stuff, you start to maybe think, okay, at least there's more evidence suggesting that this is just like the appetizer for the big main course. And that is likely, if that occurs, that's going to be more from that Earth direct center zone. So yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of energy focusing happening right now on the Earth, because this is all on the Earth facing side. And then with those oppositions, forget the astrology, for example, and those sort of archetypal influences, you just literally have the Earth caught in between these gravitational vectors. And gravity is the weakest of the forces as compared to electromagnetism and the strong and the weak nuclear forces. Doesn't mean it's not a significant force, right? You wouldn't want to jump off of a 2-story building, right? That's not a good thing to do. So these gravitational vectors still have an influence, especially in the solar system where outside of the planets, you have very little gravitational force, right? Because you don't have like you don't have thousands of planets all circling around, and you don't have massive asteroids everywhere. Like the asteroids are very spread out. And so each one of these planets, whether it's a dwarf planet like Pluto or a big one like Jupiter, they have significant gravitational influences in their local part of space-time that they influence. That's why Pluto is able to have a moon like Charon that's like nearly half its size, and a whole bunch of other moons. It is the big daddy in its part of its orbit, right? And so it captures everything near it. Same with Jupiter, Saturn. That's why they have dozens and dozens and dozens of moons, because they have a really significant gravitational effect on that area. Well, gravity does decay with the inverse square law, but still it's going to be stronger than background normal gravitational fields when you have this alignment. So we have that occurring November 3rd. So you don't even have to get into the astrology, but you study that as well, and well, it makes you think a little bit. So just let me go back to our data here, because I think there's a bit more I want to show you. Oh yeah, so here is our proton flux. Let me refresh this. And this is coming in from both of the X-class flares and coronal mass ejections. So we saw a really slow ramp up from that 3.3 X-class flare, and then we see it really spiking up there, and that's because that storm is coming in right now, but also because of that 1.8 X-class flare. And so we see some of these actually starting to go down. See that heavier 50 mega electron volt proton data starting to go down. That's indicative that that first coronal mass ejection has hit. But now we see the 10 mega electron volt one starting to go up again. We'll see how that continues, but that could be indicative of now the second solar storm influencing the proton flux. But we had that G3 geomagnetic storm, the S3 proton radiation storm, and the G4 geomagnetic storm back early in October, about 2 weeks ago. That supercharged the planet. The Earth is still supercharged from that. I made that video on the radiation belts, how we're going to go from 2 radiation belts very likely to 3 or 4 as a result. That takes like 4 to 6 weeks to unfold. So we already have an enhancement in our radiation belts. And we're seeing that very clearly with electron flux. If you had subscribed and watched prior videos just from the past week, you would see, we went through that data, how the electron flux is still elevated. Actually, it's at its highest right now after that sequence of the G3 storm, S3 proton radiation storm, G4 storm. Now we have further enhancements, because where are we measuring this? We're measuring this in the radiation belts at 5.6 Earth radii. That's actually where protons don't like to hang out. That's the outer radiation belt. That's the electron radiation belt, and then you get protons in the inner radiation belt. And right now we have a ton of electrons in the inner radiation belt in addition to the outer radiation belt because of that whole sequence 2 weeks ago, which really supercharged the planet. And now we're seeing proton flux increase in the outer radiation belt because it's streaming into our plastosphere from the solar wind from these 2 back-to-back X-class flares. And so we were like, if this is the appetizer or this is the warm-up, then by God, what does the main course look like? Because things are going crazy. Could all this energy activate our DNA completely? So there's a whole bunch of different ideas and theories out there in terms of DNA, and if we connect it to ascension, things of that nature, crystalline DNA. But DNA effectively is very, very conductive, and so it has the ability to conduct charge. Thank you for the super thanks, Kevin. Appreciate you as well. And it's also a fractal antenna because it has this self-similar design. So you take a small little chunk of DNA and it has this certain structure to it, and when you scale it up, it gets bigger and bigger, but it retains that design. So it's able to connect to electromagnetic frequencies across the entire light spectrum. And so when you have all this solar energy coming in, DNA is just one component that is connecting to that. But what we see is that when you have these charge carriers like electron going to different parts of DNA, they activate DNA differently. They'll trigger stress response proteins, or there's different mechanisms. There is also a kind of an idea/theory of how DNA even kind of works. Like, how does DNA, what governs which part of the DNA is transcribed by RNA? Well, it could be charge accumulation, that you actually have electrons accumulating and kind of vibrating, resonating in different parts of DNA, and that attracts then the messenger RNA to go there, transcribe that, and then produce that protein. And so that could all very well be that's my intuition, that I think, my intuition suggests that, for me at least. But that it would all be based on electromagnetic principles. And so you get more energy coming in from the sun, yeah, you're going to supercharge all of that. And then also, yeah, of course, our consciousness has a big just a big influence over our health, our wellness, and everything about us, right? What do you believe? Let's update our solar wind model. I don't think NOAA is going to have released it yet. I do have the NASA model. Did I? I do, yeah. So let's look at the NASA model for this new solar storm that we got coming in. And I think this is also not that accurate. We see it sweeping out here, and we see it's just a weak flank impact again there on Earth in yellow. And so, I mean, I think sometimes these people are, and God bless them, but they are so focused on the models that they don't spend time actually just looking at the imagery and seeing the shock wave come out. Like, I think sometimes they just put this in super quick and they spend all their time looking here and they're not looking at the chronograph. And so, I mean, they're showing this come in early on the 28th UTC time. I think it's gonna be later than that The last one came in later. They've consistently been forecasting them a little too early recently. And so I expect more like late on the 28th universal time. Thank you, Richard, for the super thanks. That's awesome. God bless. So just keep that in mind. But we do have that model from them. And here's our chronograph. Again, let's just watch this one more time. Look at how much, this is the first one. We already have solar wind strength at the 22 nanotesla from that. Now let's look at this next one. Bigger, badder, meaner, right here. And it pumps out, oh, there we go. That is much more significant than the first one. Still a lopsided full halo. But I mean, you look at that, you can still see how there is a big push of energy coming right towards the Earth. But if you're not, I don't know, if you're just not looking at that, you're going to think it's not even going to hit the Earth, right? Some of these models came out for the first one showing like no impact. How is there no impact when you have a full halo coming off of that? You definitely have some component. Now, is most of it going there? Yeah, most of it's going there. But we see quite a significant component headed towards Earth from both of these. The first one's already impacted. Second one's coming in on the 28th. That's expected, maybe the 29th. I think probably late on the 28th. And both of those are going to, you could say, kind of warm up and get the Earth unsettled and shaken up before perhaps really big solar storms come in after that. Because, and I don't know, but just based on our intensigram data, we can look at that once more. Just based on this sunspot group rotating through and all this solar flux pushing out there, just in the past 12 hours, I think we got some really big solar flares and solar storms coming. Yeah, something's cooking. Something's cooking. So that's just what I'm reporting on. I'm just letting you guys know. I hope I'm not right, but just looking at all the different factors, I think it's good to be aware, prepared, especially if you're bioelectrically sensitive. Make sure you're doing a lot of earthing and grounding. Make sure you are, doing what you need to be healthy, de-stressing, taking stuff off of your workload if you can, deep breathing, getting ready so if you do get sick or something, you have what you need on hand to get over that quickly, like let's say elderberry lozenges or something like that. I mean, I have my fruit tea on wildfreeorganic.com. That is great for your immunity, so you can drink that. And it also satisfies that sweet tooth. When these energies come in, your metabolism gets ramped up. It also interacts with your microbiome. And so that could really, let's go here. That interacts with your microbiome, and bacteria have a really strong connection to these sort of energies. And so it can cause microbiome dysbiosis and overgrowths and things of this nature. So be very mindful of that because they have a huge influence over our mood, our emotions, like serotonin, 90% of it's produced in the gut. And that is really important. So be mindful of your diet, maybe fasting if you feel called to do that, drinking good, clean spring water. All that's really important during these heightened solar activities. Most of our bioelectricity is in the gut. Most of our immune system's in the gut. Most inflammation in our bodies produced in the gut. Whether if you have, just like inflammation normally is produced through digestion, but it's a manageable amount and the body needs to digest food for energy. So it's like, okay, well, we'll take the inflammation. But if you have any sort of dysbiosis or IBS or things of this nature, it's too much inflammation, then it can cause problems all over. Skin problems are linked to the gut. The microbiome, gut-brain consciousness axis, so brain fog and chronic fatigue, all that goes back to gut health. I wrote a whole book on this. I had a 10-year gut health journey from 20 to 30 because it's kind of a karmic thing in my family. So if you want some education and help with that, you can get the Holistic Gut Health Guide also on my website. This is why I produce all this stuff for you guys because it's all connected together. So yeah, we'll open up the question and answer. And I did see one question that's been coming a few times about how do we support our pets during this solar activity. So let me get into that. There's a few ways to support your pets. In general, I would say, give them probably higher quality food than maybe normal. If you're just giving them kibble, maybe give them something a little better than that during that time. Also pets, like let's say dogs and cats, they have their own energy field as we do. And so spending more time with them and combining your energy fields can be beneficial for both of you. It's a little bit more grounding to stay in coherence with that kind of, like what they show with from the HeartMath Institute, is that if you hold on to compassion and love in your mind and you're meditating, that your heart field all of a sudden becomes coherent in a regular sine wave and activity. And so spending time just like, let's say on the couch with your dog and like holding on to that compassion, love, energy will bring both of your biofields into coherence, which will help you ride out these energies to a much greater degree. Also, just in general, if you're in the United States and also Europe now too, CBD is great for really calming pets down. It's not psychoactive, but they have all these CBD like dog treats and maybe cat treats too. I don't know, but I know definitely for dog treats, that is really, really effective. Helps them to, they're more energetic typically. So gets their kind of anxiety down because it can bring up anxiety and all that. So yeah, be mindful of your pets during this whole, right now during this storm that we have coming in, but also during this whole big sequence. Looks like the big one's going to hit the West Coast and create a global disaster. Who knows? We don't know. We have some more questions up here. Open question and answer for anyone that's watching. Did you see the rapid increase in earthquakes? Yeah, we've had some earthquakes recently. I mean, I have been watching that, so we can go over there really quick. I don't know why it's not showing up on this one. But I actually have the earthquake set up here. And let me set this to 7 days. I guess this one. Now, I will say that there are people, for example, on YouTube that track these earthquakes, and they release a video about huge increase in earthquake activity in California when there's like a magnitude 3 or something, or like a magnitude 3.9, or it's like, folks, if it's not over magnitude 5, I really wouldn't worry about it or even think about it, because a magnitude 5 can give you a good rattle, but if you're not like even over magnitude 4.5, you could say, if you're in that like 3 range, those happen all the time. For example, up in the geysers, I mean, look, there's one right there. Up in the geysers, we get earthquakes like that all the time. That's a 2.6. Often we get 3s. It's because there's hydrothermal activity up there. And so California is always getting magnitude 3s and magnitude 4s, and it's not a sign of increasing earthquake activity in terms of like a big one coming. Now, what is interesting about this is that we've seen a whole bunch of earthquakes from this like Cascadia subduction zone recently. If I go to the 30-day, those should pop up. Yeah, so here's our 30-day, and we see this magnitude, I think it's a magnitude 5, and then this was a magnitude 5.1. So there was a magnitude 6 that popped off in this area as well. I guess I have to go a little further back than 30 days for that. But there was recently magnitude 6 right in this area, magnitude 5. So there is more activity in this Cascadia subduction zone recently. And then we have had this sequence right here near the border of California and Nevada. And I think it's like Stovepipe Wells. I can turn on the satellite view. So right here in the extensional basin that comes after the Sierra Nevada, we've had some magnitude 4 earthquakes there. So that's interesting. But if we go to, I want to go back to our 7-day here, and those just occurred like in the past 36 hours or so. This is all accommodating plate motion that the San Andreas doesn't accommodate, because most of the plate motion between the Pacific and North American is like 70% through the San Andreas, but we do get a lot through the Garlock Fault, which runs up like this. Then also we do get extensional dynamics occurring all throughout there, which is why the Badlands look the way that they do. And so, there has been quite a few earthquakes recently, but is there a big one coming? Hard to say. I would think, if I had to place bets, I would say a big one would be much more likely during the descending phase of solar cycle 25 or during solar minimum. So that'd be like 2028, 2029, 2030, 2031, 2032. I think that's when it's more likely. A lot of people are looking at 2025 though, because of Uranus and Taurus. And Uranus is connected to earthquakes and volcanoes, and right when it's going to exit, that might be when we see a big pop-off. Who knows? The world's a big place though. It's more than just the Earth, like the West Coast that gets earthquakes. Here's the entire ring of fire. So we see all these. I'm a little bit behind now in the questions. What were the highest solar flare moments of the last 10 years? Overall peak moments. That occurred just this month with what was it? 9.1 solar flare. That's the strongest in a long time. I think about the past 10 years or so. And so, yeah, it's really strong solar activity right now with solar cycle 25. And that's not letting up anytime soon, as we see with just what's happening. Really big pushes of energy. Do I need an assistant? I do need an assistant. And so, yeah, I also wanted to talk a little bit about what solar energy represents with the more spiritual dimension of it. Because the sun is connected to Christ consciousness, it's connected to our solar plexus, also connected to our heart. It's connected to Archangel Saint Michael. And so when you have this big increase in solar energy, you are having, thank you, Lee, for the super thanks. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you, appreciate that. So when you get this big increase in solar energy, you are getting this big push of divine light coming into the planet. That's what I believe. That's what a lot of people believe. There's a lot of evidence for that. And so that exposes a lot of darker energies, you can say. And I was watching this documentary just yesterday on the Celts and how they thought in trinities rather than black and white. So I don't think just in black and white. Actually don't want to think in any really specific paradigm, but they would see black, white, and gray, for example. And so you have this solar energy and light coming in, exposing some of these darker, you could say more evil things, but just in general, bringing things to light, shining light into these dark places and then purifying them, right? It's like a purifying process, which is something that we desperately need to undergo because there are a lot of these energies that have been in our sphere, in our earth, and also in our local environments that have greatly affected us and families and societies, communities, governments and entire countries. Dark influences, you could say. And so the dream that I had 2 nights ago, which I found absolutely fascinating, was that I was outside this house and I saw this lady walking up the stairs and she was about to go into the house. And I said, okay, well, before you go into the house, keep in mind that it's like crawling with entities. And so let me go ahead and deal with that. So long as I go in there with you, it'll be fine. So we walk into the house together. And as I'm walking through the house, I'm calling upon Archangel Saint Michael to cleanse and purify the entire house and to basically move these entities out. And so I'm going through and just saying, proclaiming very loudly and authoritatively, you need to leave. It's time for you to go. You are no longer welcome in this house the way you are. You need to be purified to go back to source, all this stuff. And there's no wiggle room, no doubt, and no debate. We're like, oh, well, maybe. It's like, no, it's like time to go. Got through the house. And these entities were really interesting. There was 5 of them. It was a family. It was a husband and a wife and then 3 girls. And so they all kind of they were coming out of the closet and all this stuff. And they finally got out because they were hiding away. And they finally got out and walked down the hallway. And right as they walked out the door, they transformed into a normal, healthy, happy family. And I actually put my hand on the guy's head. He was bald, the husband. And said, Saint Michael purifies you and you are now whole and healed again. And he went through this transformation, became a normal, healthy guy again. And as they walked away, they all turned and waved. And I think that's very much what's occurring at this moment in time. I think a lot of things, a lot of people, a lot of places are going to go through that solar purification. And we can be the ones that deliver that. We have the sun here. We have Christ consciousness and we have the power and support of Archangel Saint Michael. But we need to evoke that, right? We need to be that messenger to bring that and to manifest that, to be that creator that does that, using our voice, using our intention, using our will. And so this is all latent energy and potential that exists there and here in general. It is up to us to walk through that house and to purify it. That is our calling. That is our mission. That is what I believe right now. And so that is also kind of more the esoteric spiritual concept right now with what's happening. This is like our wake-up call with these first two, right? Giving us this information and bringing this to our awareness. I'm just a messenger for this. And then perhaps if we get a really, really big solar push, that is when we can really have the energy to enact a tremendous amount of change. And that's very likely to occur, I think, again, based on those planetary oppositions and just in general, the energies of the time. It's not only those oppositions. We also have Pluto sextile Neptune. We have next year Saturn conjunct Neptune, and that is going to happen also in 2026. We have some really crazy energies happening right now between all the outer planets, Pluto, Neptune, Uranus, and yeah, those three really, they're all really tightly configured. And so there's just a tremendous amount of archetypal change. The dwarf planets are doing some really significant stuff. Sedna, for example, is approaching her closest point in the solar system, her perihelion, for her 1,400 year cycle. Last time Sedna got this close was when we went from the Younger Dryas into the pre-pottery Neolithic, and we see monuments and temples pop up like Göbekli Tepe, which kind of marked the beginning of human civilization as we know it. And so what is this return of Sedna, if that is a trend, right? If that's a cyclical thing. What does this return of Sedna mean in 2076 when she's at her perihelion? Like, this could be a massive, massive, massive change that we are undergoing. Right now we're at the beginning of it, but we get this big solar push to really wake us up at this moment in time. And so just expect the unexpected. I would not be surprised to see some really big developments in terms of, let's say, US politics. We won't touch on it, but that's all I'll say. I would not be surprised, like really big developments, like earth-shattering developments there. I would not be surprised, especially with all this solar energy. Look to solar figures and see what they're doing, and it'll make itself known. If there's any big change, dynamic change to a really big solar figure, we'll know. We also see really significant developments with the economy. Just to touch on it quickly, again, I don't know the future, but what we saw is when Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008, boom, we got the fiscal crisis, right? The Great Recession. And that was because there was a collapse of the euro-dollar system. And so this is effectively just a way of accounting for money across the globe, all the different banks. It's this ledger system that exists between all these international banks. And it wasn't just a subprime mortgage crisis where you had all these mortgages that were being given out like candy. It was that plus a whole bunch of other things that were also very, very wild and crazy and not really secure, and you could say like stable, right? It was just all these, it was like the Wild West, you could say. So it wasn't just subprime mortgages that caused this great financial crisis in 2008. It was all this other stuff too, very speculative investments that don't have much behind them, right? That was when Pluto first moved into Capricorn in 2008. Now we have Pluto like in the next 2 weeks or next month, moving out of Capricorn for the final time. When we saw Pluto move into Aquarius for the first time just a couple of years ago, that's when we had a couple bank failures in the United States. And so the astrology is suggesting, doesn't mean it's going to happen, but the astrology is suggesting that there could be a big, big economic crisis as Pluto moves out of Capricorn and into Aquarius. Because the first time we moved into Aquarius, we had a couple bank failures. They were super over leveraged. Now we get the final move into Aquarius at the beginning, and we get the final exit out of Capricorn. And so all those are indicating some really big shocks, perhaps, to our economy globally. And that's further supported by why, I mean, for example, we get all these world leaders meeting up for BRICS, right? They want to create their own ledger money system because we know that the euro dollar system is fundamentally still broken after 2008. We never really fixed it. And so we are still living in that paradigm, but we're about to exit that and finally come into a new era. So just stay attuned to your spirit and live in your highest vibration. Everything will work out for you. I believe that. A question from Movie Clips is, will we see Aurora in the UK anytime soon? Maybe if you're up in Scotland or the Orkney Islands, you'll see some from these storms that are coming in right now. But in terms of the United Kingdom, I would say we're going to need another big G4 or G5 storm for that. And that's very well possible if we get some really big storm come in from this sunspot cluster. So that is possible, but it's hard to give you like a specific date because we just haven't had that mega storm yet. Massive changes in 2025. Yep. I think there were some other questions up here too. Just want to make sure I get them all. Okay. Yes. So that's just the update for you all today. I hope you've all appreciated that. Let's look at our solar wind one more time, and then I'm going to get those sound bowls, and we're going to do a little bit of a sound healing for you all. So here we go. Let's just see what's happened with our solar wind. We can also look at our geomagnetic indices here. So solar wind strong, but because it hasn't flipped southward, we still haven't entered into a storm. That is what matters with these impacts. But I mean, now we're starting to get, here we go. Now we're starting to get these characteristics needed for a geomagnetic storm. See that? It's 22 and negative 12, right? We're just now entering into that. Let's go to the 6-hour view, or even like the 2-hour view. Let's look at the 2-hour view. It doesn't show 2 hours. Here's our 6-hour view. This is all delayed by about an hour because we're collecting this at the L1 Lagrange point. So 1% of the distance to the sun. And so if this starts to really flip to that southward component, that's when that storm is going to start, G1, G2. I think if it flips and goes down to these lower negative values, I think G3 is what we'll have. Because now we're seeing, 22 and the strength is quite up there. And that's what I said, G2 or G3 storm. So we'll find out. Unlikely to go to G4. This is that coronal mass ejection shock right there. We see that pump up. But the other thing too to keep in mind is that these are long duration flares. If you go to our X-ray flux again, just check this out. This is a long duration. So when you get this short little spike, the coronal mass ejection kind of impacts and that's it. But when you get this long duration, there's more power behind it. It takes a longer time to pass through. And that's also the case too when you have these flares off the side. It's kind of this longer duration sweep by. So we're just at the beginning of this geostorm right now. Again, it hasn't triggered any significant volatility in Earth's magnetic field, but if it flips, it will. So yes, a couple more questions. Wouldn't people in the polar regions be more susceptible to any effects of CMEs due to weaker magnetic fields in the poles? Yes, absolutely. The magnetic field swings are much greater in the high latitude regions. And so I would suspect that they would have these effects more often in terms of let's say health and wellness effects from that. But there's more than just that though, but that is an important component. What are your suggestions to someone who is sensitive to the flares and storms, how to handle them, ways to minimize the not so pleasant effects? I have an entire video on that, sunshine. So if you go to my channel, I guess I could pull it up now. I guess you'll see my back end, but here it is. Health effects of rapid solar changes. This is the video to watch. And this will... Solar activity has been... This one right here will get you completely up to date with what is happening. So give that a watch. Is there any connection between all this cosmic upheaval and HARP and geoengineering? So it's interesting, having studied into HARP and read a lot of research papers on HARP, seeing the really big increase in people talking about HARP just over the past I would say, month or so. So I don't know why. I mean, we had those hurricanes. And I've even seen my video on HARP just all of a sudden have this boost in views as a result. So do we do engineering? Yes, we absolutely do. There's active geoengineering on the planet. Let me go back to here. And it's been going on for decades, like decades and decades. They had geoengineering experiments going back to the 20s and the 30s. My opinion on this is that we are not geoengineering as much as a lot of people think we are. Like some people think that literally everything is controlled by geoengineering. Every single weather pattern and system, every single cloud you see, that's just clearly not true. That's just a type of psychosis that people have entered into. And this is common, where people think the sun is fake and all this stuff is because they think that God is like omnipotent, or like humans are omnipotent like God. And it's just like this creator psychosis or something. We do a lot of stuff. We influence the planet in big ways, but we also are still not the biggest influence. The sun is the biggest influence. The earth herself has a lot of things that she does, right? So HARP, for example, that's just one of these ionospheric heaters that can create this ionized channel in the ionosphere and inject this wave energy out into the magnetosphere and cause ion precipitation. It only works if you already have a lot of ions up in the radiation belts, which we do right now. But you open up these channels, they come down, and you can cause certain effects. They've shown how you can increase the Schumann resonances just in that local area very to a minor degree, but you can influence them using HARP. HARP is like the one up in Alaska is 9 million megawatts, 9 million watts in strength. And so it's quite a lot, but like one lightning strike is more than that. And so we have to put these things into perspective. Now there's a whole bunch of these HARP type installations around the world. And I think it's really dumb that we do this sort of research because we're altering the geophysics of the planet in a way that we don't fully understand. But in terms of, are we using HARP and geoengineering to steer hurricanes around and things of that nature? I don't think we're doing that. I think an example of geoengineering got wrong is what happened in Dubai, where they were cloud seeding and then all of a sudden we had a system come in and then it gave them this big, super heavy rainfall and flooding. But I don't think we're steering hurricanes around to displace people. Now there have been some weird things though, like the wildfires in Maui are weird. And a lot of the locals there, they reported that it's like, hey, this was not like a normal wildfire. So again, like I don't have the answers to everything. I just don't think that we are in control of literally every aspect of our weather and society. And we know that the physical limitations of HARP, it's not as powerful as people think it is. So thank you, Jesse, for the super thanks, for the quid, 2 quid, awesome. Can you explain what sunspots actually are and why are they so highly active right now? What's the difference between solar flares and coronal mass ejections? Yeah, then we'll do sound healing. I want to get a sip of coffee first too. Before that, by the way, spirituality is in stock and I shipped out all the orders that came in just over the past couple of days. So those people are going to get this before Halloween. And so if you'd like to get spirituality before Halloween, then I would recommend you order like today because I can probably package that up and ship it out for you. But this is blue lotus flower, mugwort, chamomile, and passion flower. Really good at activating your parasympathetic nervous system. So it will help you with all this solar activity, but also activates your third eye and lets you connect to these energies in the more 5-dimensional space and pull in that energy and information and consciousness from the sun, from the earth, from the cosmos. And so not only does like something like spirituality help you to ride out these waves of increasing energy better, enhances your intuition, just in general is good for your health and wellness, and will give you those kind of uploads from all these other sources, the sun, the earth, cosmos, that can really be life-changing in significant ways. Enhances your dreams, really good for meditation, all those things. If you pick it up soon, You may even have it by time for Halloween. Depends on where you live. So sunspots are where there is magnetic flux being pushed out of the sun. And typically it'll go like this and it'll spread apart. And so that's what you see actually happening with these two new sunspots right here. Let's look at that one. See how it's kind of going like that? So you have this new flux bundle pushing out of the sun, and then it releases and you get this connection of the magnetic fields to create a solar flare. And that connection is so explosive that it then pushes out a whole bunch of material from the surface of the sun and in that corona region, creating a coronal mass ejection. And now you have all these solar particles accelerated, creating this shock wave that travels out. Now, this is why this sunspot group here is so significant, because typically you have this solar flux push out and move apart, and eventually it kind of just dissolves, right? Eventually the flux bundle pushes out just like this. This sunspot group here has been locked and trapped and frozen now, like frozen for a really long time, for more than a month. And as a result of it all being so clustered together, it's able to just continuously release these solar flares, and they've been big solar flares. We had 4 X-class flares the last time this sunspot cluster was on the Earth-facing side, and it opened up on the Earth-facing side. So it did not make an entire transit. It started like right around here or so, and then developed. We've already had 2 X-class flares from it, and it's only, as you see, going to right here so far. So this could be like the record breaker sunspot for solar cycle 25 thus far. I would not be surprised if we get like 6 or 8 or 10 X-class flares from this. I would not be surprised. We already have 2, and now with this solar flux there opening up, I really could see that having a rapid sequence of high energy solar flares that push out just a machine gun of coronal mass ejections over the next week or so. So yeah, the next week's going to be insane. Almost certainly. We don't know, but all signs are pointing towards it being insane, especially this new flux pumping up there. There's some more questions. Research the theory of a 13-month year. Yeah, a year based on lunar cycles would be much better than this. Hollow Earth theory, electric universe. I mean, basically, electric universe is a little bit of a cult, but they're on the right track in understanding that there's a lot of electrodynamics at play with our universe. But I mean, I'm talking electric universe all the time, but I don't feel the need to say this is electric universe theory and point out those people or groups. Because again, everyone's just so cultish nowadays. It's like, just what's the information? Just present that. So yeah, our universe is electric. It's electromagnetic, primarily. That's one of the dominant fundamental forces. Gravity and electromagnetism at the scale of the universe are the big ones, as far as we know. In terms of hollow Earth, I don't think the Earth is hollow. We have seismic measurements for that, showing. We just don't have any evidence that the Earth is hollow. Like in terms of what we saw with King Kong and what was it, Godzilla? They're fighting in like inner Earth. Like there's just no evidence for that. So let me pull out the bowls, and we'll just do a little bit of sound healing, and then move on from there. Okay. Got a couple of them. This is the solar plexus one. This one's awesome. And then I also have a third eye one here, which is insane. This one's so good. And there's one more, and that is a Tibetan bowl for the root chakra, note C. But let's start with the solar plexus one here. And I may have to turn the volume down on my microphone, or else it may be way too intense. So just hang tight. Just hang tight. Thank you. Thank you for the super thanks. Okay. I want to get rearranged here really quick, so one moment. This should be better. I would like just to share a little story with this one. Thank you for the super thanks. Netavoy Batya. This one was on discount because it had these cracks in the bottom, as you see there. But it actually is like the best bowl in terms of the sound production. All the others, they just didn't make the best sound. And so I bought this one. It was great. I love it. And it's kind of like, even though we may have our defects, sometimes that's actually what makes us the best. That was just kind of like the little message I got from this one. I just feel so much love from this singing bowl here for the third eye. Even though it has these superficial marks on the bottom, it makes the best sound, absolutely. So let's get that one going. Yeshua, Jesus, and Archangel Saint Michael to purify this planet and to help us receive these solar energies and to integrate them to our highest good and to bring our higher spirit into our bodies, to channel this energy towards our passions, to unlock our creativity and bring in the fifth dimension, to usher in the new age of Aquarius, which is also the age of Leo, to balance our chakras, our energies, our minds, and to radiate this light out to all others around us, to shine light into the darkness, to purify it, and to usher in a solar revolution. To protect us during stormy weather, chaotic times, but to liberate us and to use those more dynamic periods and to bring in opportunities that benefit us and all mankind. To help us be receptive and to receive your guidance and wisdom and love and carry us forward. To help this earth become a paradise, to help her regrow, become bountiful, even more so than she is now. To unite the divided masculine and feminine energies into a single unified whole. To awaken the inner light and fire in people around the world. So I'm now going to spend a little bit of time on the third eye. That was a lot of solar plexus. That's why I called in Saint Michael. But I'm going to spend some time now just on the third eye. And so I recommend, if you can, to find a nice, comfortable seated position and to close your eyes and to engage with your third eye. Focus right here. And it may take some time to really feel that, because often like you think you're focusing there and then eventually it clicks. It's like a magic eye kind of, when you're looking at these images and all of a sudden it clicks into focus. So just keep focusing there until you get that optimal kind of psychic gaze where you almost feel like you can see everything around you even though your eyes are closed, and just enjoy this third eye sound bath. focus on your third eye. What do you envision? Not in the future, but now in the present. What do you manifest and create instantly in this moment? Manifestation is a process that can take time. It can also happen instantly. I envision peace for all people on this planet. For us to recognize our universality, how we are all connected together, how we are one. But what do you envision in your life for those you care for, your community, and the world at large, for all the other life forms, interdimensional beings that surround us? Many of them here to guide us and to protect us. Send them your thanks and appreciation. Give your blessing to God. Where can you show more gratitude? Less asking and more thanks. Appreciation. And faith, knowing that it will all work out as it's meant to, and what's to be will be. Embrace your power of creation. We were created not only in the image of God, but with His power too, for us to unlock and use responsibly with consciousness. That is what this solar energy is coming in and doing. What do you see with your third eye? What visions come to you? What do you feel? Yeah, these bowls are very nice. Happy to have shared them with you. I am going to start incorporating these more in my videos, doing a meditation at the end, a cosmic connection meditation. And so if you make sure you watch my videos all the way through in the future, you'll find that 5-minute meditation at the end of each one, or as often as I can. Because it's important for us to not only be aware of what's happening, so we can better utilize these energies, but to actually utilize them and not be trapped in this information addiction, but to take action. And so I'm here to help you with that as best I can, one step at a time. Namaste, namaste, namaste. We will wrap up now. Again, just a reminder, action, not just words, action. I have the spirituality. I really feel like I'm being guided by spirit to make this and produce this, and seeing the impact it's had on so many people now. And, nothing in life is permanent. I don't know how long I'm going to be able to make these for. If I need to start traveling again, things get crazy, whatever, I don't know. So this is a temporary, perhaps. I hope not. And I hope it's a long-term thing, but it could be a temporary gift of the universe. And so make sure you get some while you can, because I can't guarantee it's going to be around forever. I'll do my best to make that happen, but we know that we have some crazy things lined up for the future. That's what it seems. We should be prepared for that, and set your vibe, set your frequency, be the thermostat, not the thermometer, and look beyond the duality and see the wholeness that exists, that brings us all together, and how even maybe divisive moments can be the trigger that brings about the change that's needed. So don't be afraid of these things. I don't think there's anything to be afraid of. Focus on your health, your wellness, be happy, be well. That's the foundation. And from there, everything builds up. So yes, thank you for everyone that sent a super thanks during the whole sound healing, for all your love and support. Thank you all so much. I will be back with more videos very soon, I'm sure, because of everything that's happening. But I wanted to jump on live today because I knew you would all enjoy it, and I wanted to do this sound bath healing. And so there'll be more of that. These two bowls here are awesome. I tried all of them, and these two really spoke. Solar plexus, again, I'll show you. Solar plexus, and also the third eye chakra. And I would give you the frequency, but it's on my phone. I took a photo. It's on my phone. But this one's like 800 something hertz. This one is a little bit lower, like 6 something. So they're way up there, but they sound great. So yeah, keep shining bright, keep doing your thing. Take some time for yourself. Earthing, grounding. Again, the storm is just coming in right now. We have another one coming in on the 28th. And so we're already in a heightened energy period. And I think that's going to really explode in the next week or so. So now is the time to be grounding and earthing and stabilizing your energies, so these first couple waves don't throw you off tilt. So then you can ride out the big ones, which I think are likely to come in. So with that, I wish you all well, and I'll see you all very, very soon. And just love, light, blessings. Namaste.